The Ross Sea, Antarctica, is a 5-day trip south from New Zealand across the Southern Ocean. Towering waves stretch to the edge of imagination, and even a 400-foot-long ship is thrown around like a toy. On the extremes of the worst rolls, you can walk on the walls. But even when the ship is officially the most isolated vessel in the world, the great birds of the Southern Ocean slice effortlessly through the fray, escorting the ship south towards the ice. Days further south, the midnight sun illuminates a thin white band stretching across the entire southern horizon, splitting the sea and sky. This is the edge of the ice, and as the ship cuts through it, the towering waves are replaced with a jigsaw puzzle of floating ice and wandering mountains. The scale of this landscape is impossible to capture. I've never felt so small. The nomadic icebergs start their journey as part of the Ross Ice Shelf, which floats over the entire bottom third of the Ross Sea. Dozens of glaciers spill down the transantarctic mountains, converging into this massive river of ice. The 600-kilometer-long line of cliffs advances 3 meters every day. The shelf is 400 meters thick and the size of France. The jigsaw puzzle of sea ice has an even larger scale. In the 6 straight months of Antarctic night, temperatures drop below -40, and the water around Antarctica freezes into an unbroken slab of ice, 3 meters thick, effectively doubling the size of the Antarctic continent. The sea ice breaks up and melts in the Antarctic summer, only to be replaced the next year. Shackleton, Scott, and the other great polar explorers found humility in battling the ice and cold, but the creatures that live in this place, that thrive in the windiest, coldest, driest place on Earth, are even more humbling. Adélie penguins are one of only 2 penguin species that are found exclusively in Antarctica. Visitors to this icy world are bundled in down jackets, down pants, and specialized polar boots. But the penguins do it all in bare feet. Bellies full of fish, hunting parties of Adélies start a long walk back to the Cape Royds colony, the southernmost penguin colony of any species. Adélies breed on Antarctica's few patches of bare ground, pinprick islands and rock outcrops. They return, for the most part, to the same colonies where they were born, making their nests from the very same pebbles that their ancestors have used for thousands of years. The ancient ceremonies of moving, stealing, and rearranging the sharp volcanic pebbles have worn them smooth. Emperor penguins breed on the sea ice itself, laying their eggs in the dead of winter. They have no nest, and the males stand upright for the months of Antarctic night, holding the eggs on their feet, protecting the precious packages from the deadly cold. Emperors are the best avian divers in the world. They reach depths of 600 meters and dive times of up to 20 minutes. Just before a dive, a bird races its heart to 250 beats a minute, saturating its body with oxygen. Over the course of a long dive, an emperor can slow its heart rate to a mere 6 beats a minute. But as it explodes from the water, it accelerates its heart, flooding oxygen back into its system. Physiologically, the bird endures the equivalent of a human heart attack on each dive with no ill effects. Deep into the pack ice, the floating puzzle pieces are huge, 400 square miles, and act like tectonic plates. They collide to form jumbled piles of ice at the margins, opening and closing small areas of water as the pack ice shifts. The open water teems with phytoplankton, small shrimp-like krill, and Antarctic silverfish. Minke and killer whales follow the seams between the plates, locating these most inaccessible pockets of water to find the feast. The Ross Sea killer whale, one of 3 distinct types of killer whales in the region, is believed to be a separate species. Until recent developments, it had rarely been seen anywhere but in the Ross Sea itself. Weddell seals are the southernmost mammals in the world and live in the Ross Sea all year long. Adélie penguins, whales, and petrels all migrate north in the dark winter. Even emperors leave for part of the year, but the Weddells stay, relying on predictable pressure cracks to find refuge under the ice during fierce winter storms. With the lid of ice clamped shut, shades of cyan replace the veils of white, and there in the blue light, the Weddells sing. The seals maintain their portals all year long, raking their teeth across the edges to keep the holes from freezing shut. But even in winter, they are not alone. Beneath the seal colony, the ocean floor is a mosaic. Writhing piles of lurid sea stars, urchins, and meter-long Nemertean worms eat anything a seal drops. Attached to the rocks, anemones wave their many arms, mouths puckered until they catch something to eat. Giant sea spiders walk the substrate with their bizarre strides, sometimes taking freeloading passengers along for a ride. The water averages negative 1.6 degrees Celsius, just above the freezing point of salt water. But even colder water, flowing upward from beneath the ice shelf, crystallizes to form fields of stalagmites, or anchor ice. Anchor ice will even form around benthic creatures, sometimes killing an urchin or an enemy by breaking off and floating up to the underside of the sea ice with the helpless animal still attached. The anchor ice stops forming at 15 meters, and below that, the ecosystem stabilizes. Isopods like Antarcturus often stand on top of small sponges to feed on passing zooplankton. Deeper still, giant sponges filter the water, some larger than 50-gallon drums and thought to be centuries old. Trematomus bernacki, like other fishes in this icy water, is equipped with natural antifreeze. It is directly related to 30 other species of fish in the Ross Sea. Together, they form one of the only known examples of a species flock, where a single branch of the evolutionary tree has radiated into a community of animals that fill every niche. Even the Antarctic toothfish, the top predatory fish in the Ross Sea, is part of this flock. Above the reef, the water is filled with lights. Luminous ctenophores float in mid-water, emitting bursts of deeply saturated color as the animals move slowly forward. One species unfurls a drift net of fine filaments in the hunt for phytoplankton, but it can easily recall its nets and set off to the next spot if the fishing isn't good. And for half the year, it isn't. In winter's 6 months of darkness, phytoplankton is in short supply. The entire benthic ecosystem must wait out the winter for fresh food. And fresh food is delivered by the wind. Unobstructed by obstacles, winds race down from the high Antarctic plateaus, gaining speed until they shoot off the Ross ice shelf at 200 kilometers per hour and out across the Ross Sea. These winds push the blanket of seasonal ice away from the edge of the shelf, creating a large pool of open water, a polynya, even when the rest of the sea is covered in ice. When the sun finally rises after the long night, a floating forest of phytoplankton blooms in the open water. The bloom is so large and dense that it can be seen from space. Over 500 scientists worldwide have described the Ross Sea as the last expanse of undisturbed ocean on the planet. The Ross Sea is the last ocean. But this place, and all of the remarkable species that call it home, are under immense and building pressure. And even as ships penetrate the shield of ice to join the most remote fishery on Earth, these animals are already fighting a fast-changing climate for their very existence.